Hello everyone, I'm Claire from Susan's family. Today, I'll teach you how to make a Ruyi Jacquard sweater. This sweater consists of the collar, yoke, the body, the hem, and the sleeves. We'll be knitting it from top to bottom. Since everyone has different knitting tension, the size of the knitted pieces will also vary. Before we start knitting, we need to make a gauge sample. To measure your knitting tension, the method for making the gauge sample is explained in a separate video. Refer to the pattern for the specific gauge. Ensure your gauge swatch is approximately the same as the recommended gauge. Then start working the collar. Let's look at the chart. It alternates between K1 TBL and purl 1. The collar is worked in rounds. You'll need 4 straight needles. Each round is knitting according to the pattern chart. Now let me demonstrate the specific knitting technique. First, cast on. Here we use alternating cable cast on. To make it clear for everyone, I'm using cotton yarn for the demonstration. For specific yarn details, color schemes, and needle sizes, please refer to the detail pages and pattern chart of our product. Make a slip knit with the yarn. Leave the tail end a bit longer, to make it convenient for weaving in the ends later. Pick up the needle with your left hand. Insert into the loop. Slightly tighten. This is the first stitch. Consider this stitch as a purl stitch. Hold the other straight needle in your right hand, like you would hold a pen. Then wrap the yarn tail around your right little finger. Gently pinch the yarn with your ring finger and middle finger. Place this yarn between your index finger and middle finger. This is the proper posture for knitting. Next, place the right needle above the yarn. Insert downwards into the loop on the left needle. Use your right index finger to draw the yarn through. Yarn over and pick up the yarn. Draw it onto the left needle. Don't make the yarn too tight, or it will be difficult to pick up stitches later. This is the second stitch. Consider this stitch as a knit stitch. You can see that the yarn is below the needle. Begin cast on purlwise. Place the right needle below the yarn. Insert from back to front between these two loops. Mind that the insertion is at the middle of the loop. Don't thread through the loop. Yarn over and pick up the yarn. Draw it onto the left needle. This is the third stitch. Consider this stitch as a purl stitch. You can see the yarn is above the needle. Continue with casting on knitwise. Place the right needle above the yarn. Insert the right needle. Yarn over and draw through. This is the fourth stitch. Cast on one more stitch purlwise. Place the right needle below the yarn. Insert the right needle. Yarn over and draw through. This is the fifth stitch. The cast on is alternating between knit 1 and purl 1. Keep working downward. When the working yarn is above the needle, cast on one stitch knitwise. When the working yarn is below needle, cast on one stitch purlwise. Work down to the required number of stitches. As you can see, this is what you have after the cast on is completed. In practice, the number of stitches is larger. Pay attention to prevent the loops from slipping off on both sides. Next, we start working the first round, because we need to work in the round. So first divide the number of stitches on the straight needle evenly onto 3 needles. Pick up loops from bottom to top. one stitch at a time. Until you reach the required number of stitches. Then move the loops to the middle. Take another straight needle and continue picking up. Now they are all divided. Set up the needles in a triangle shape. Note not to twist the bottom. Start knitting from where the yarn tail is. Take the fourth needle. The first stitch is the symbol for knit 1 through back loop. We'll refer to it as K1 TBL from now on. The right needle goes from top to bottom, inserting into the back loop of the first stitch. Note that you're inserting into the loop, not between two loops. Yarn over and pull the yarn through. At the same time, release the loop on the left needle. One knit 1 through back loop is complete. Because it's at the junction of two needles, you need to tighten the yarn tail. Otherwise, the finished product won't look neat. The yarn tail at the starting position also needs to be tightened. The second stitch is represented by a horizontal line. It indicates a purl stitch. Wrap the yarn above the right needle. Then take the right needle. Insert from front to back into the loop on the left needle. Yarn over and draw through. Release the loop. One purl stitch is complete. Continue with one knit 1 through back loop. First wrap the yarn below the needle. Insert downwards behind the loop. Yarn over and draw through. One knit 1 through back loop is complete. Below is a twisted braid-like texture. Then purl 1. Don't forget to wrap the yarn above the right needle. Then insert upwards into the loop. Yarn over and draw through. One purl stitch is complete. After completing, let's take a look. The purl stitch has a tile-shaped texture, with a bump at the top. This round alternates between knit 1 through the back loop and 1 purl stitch. Remember to yarn over before each stitch, or you'll end up with extra stitches. Continue according to this pattern, knitting all the loops on this needle. When done, you reach the junction. Continue working according to the pattern. Pay attention at the needle junction. The first stitch needs to be tightened. Now knit all the loops on the needle next to the yarn tail. As you can see, now we've reached the position of the yarn tail. The first round is completed. Next, work round 2. Identical to the previous round, alternating with 1K1 TBL and 1 purl stitch. The first stitch is the K1 TBL symbol. Knit 1 through back loop. Pull tight. The second stitch is the purl stitch symbol. Purl the very stitch. Besides referring to the chart, you can also follow the texture of the piece. For the next stitch, if it's a twisted V shape, knit a K1 TBL. If it's a tile unit shape, purl 1 stitch. Continue with the pattern of alternating K1 TBL and purl stitch. Complete this round. Pay attention to pulling tight the first stitch at the transition point. This completes round 2. For each subsequent round, repeat this process. You can follow the texture or the pattern chart to work. Refer to the chart for the specific number of rounds. Note, when you come to the straight needle junction point, work the corresponding stitch tighter. If you do not know where the very first stitch is, you can refer to the position of the beginning yarn tail. Here, above the yarn tail, is the first stitch of each round. I won't continue demonstrating here. Now I'll use this small sample. Show you how to count rounds. On the right side of the fabric piece, there are rows of twisted braids. One braid represents one round. The braid from cast on doesn't count as one row. Start counting from the second braid. Count upwards along this column of braids. 1, 2, 3. The loops on the straight needle count as the fourth round. This indicates that 4 rounds have been completed. Note that the loops on the straight needle correspond to the round you just finished. Up to this point, the collar section has been explained. Finish the collar according to the pattern. Next, we will start yoke. Let's look at the pattern chart. A vertical line in the diagram represents a knit stitch. To avoid making the picture too dense, empty squares also represent knit stitches. During the knitting process, you'll need to increase stitches. The method used for increasing is the whip stitch increase. You'll also need to work right cross and left cross to form the pattern. Now, let me demonstrate the specific knitting technique. First, work the first round. The symbol in the pattern chart is a vertical line, indicating knit all stitches. For a more aesthetically pleasing effect, we will need to adjust the needle size here based on the situation. Take out the new straight needle. Insert the right needle from top to bottom into the first loop. Note that you insert it into the front loop, not the back loop. Pick up the thread. Release the loop on the left needle. This is the first stitch. Slightly tighten. Next, work the second stitch. Insert the right needle from top to bottom into the loop. Yarn over and pick up the thread. Release the loop on the left needle. The second stitch is knit. Third stitch completed. The braid below shows the texture of the knit stitches. Knit one by one accordingly down the row. Knit this needle through. Once done, take out the new straight needle and start knitting. Switch out the old needle as you work. At the junction of the two straight needles, the first stitch also needs to be tightened. Knit through this round. The first round is completed, and the needle size has been changed. Now work the second round. This round requires increasing stitches. The first stitch is a whip stitch increase. Place your right index finger above the thread. Make a loop clockwise. Put this loop onto the straight needle. Slightly tighten it. Note that it doesn't slip off the other side of the needle. This is a whip stitch increase. Then knit 5 stitches. Then work one more whip stitch increase. Place your index finger above the thread. Yarn over and pull it over the right needle upwards. Another whip stitch increase is completed. Continue knitting 5 more stitches. Continue with the pattern of 1 whip stitch increase and 5 knit stitches. Work to the end of this round. The second round is complete. Place a marker on the braid below the straight needle. Marking it as the first round. Now move on to the third round. Knitting all stitches. Knit 1 at the whip stitch increase position. Continue knitting this round to completion. The third round is complete. From the 4th round to the 17th round, the method is simple. Knit several rounds evenly. Then increase once. Refer to the pattern for the specific position of the whip stitch increases. When counting rounds, start from the marker position. Count the number of braids in this column. The method is the same as before. From here on, you can follow the pattern to work these rounds on your own. I won't continue demonstrating. Now we'll knit round 18. I'll demonstrate with this small sample. The small sample has fewer stitches and rounds. I'm just demonstrating the method. First, knit 2. Then work 1 left cross. Insert the right needle into the back loop of the second stitches on the left needle. Pinch the base of the loop with your right thumb and index finger. Remove the left needle. Insert the right needle back in front of the right side loop. Then return the loop on the right needle to the left needle. These two loops will now be crossed. And the right loop is above. Knit 2 more stitches next. The left cross is now complete. Work a right cross next. Using the right needle. Slips the first 2 loops in sequence. The left needle picks up the right side stitch from back loop. Hold the base of the loop with your left hand. Remove the right needle. Insert it back through the front of the left side loop. Return the loop to the left needle. These 2 stitches are crossed, and the left loop is above. Knit 2 more stitches next. The right cross is now complete. Refer to the chart and work the corresponding number of stitches. Work a left cross next. The right needle picks up the second loop from back loop. Remove the left needle. Remove the right needle. Insert it back through the front of the right side loop. The right needle returns the loop to the left needle. The 2 loops are now crossed. Knit 2 more stitches. Another right cross is completed. Work a right cross next. Slip the first 2 loops off the right needle. The left needle picks up the right side stitch from back loop. Insert it back through the front of the left side loop. And return it to the left needle. The loops are now crossed. Knit 2 more stitches. The right cross is completed. Continue according to the chart. Knit the intervals corresponding to the number of stitches. Work the crossing stitches. Finish this round. Round 18 is completed. Knit all stitches. To finish the round 19. Round 19 is completed. Next, work round 20. Knit 2 stitches first. Then work 1 right cross. Follow with 1 left cross. These 2 crossing stitches align with the crossing stitches below. They are in the same column position as the ones above and below. These 4 crossing stitches forms a crossing stitch cluster. Continue knitting a certain number of stitches. Then work a right cross. Follow with the left cross. The second crossing cluster is completed. Continue working this round following the chart. Round 20 is completed. Refer to the chart for the following rounds. Increase stitches and work crossing cluster at the corresponding positions. My small sample has fewer rounds and stitches. The up and down crossing stitch positions are staggered. Pay attention not to work in the wrong position. The method is simple. You can continue knitting on your own. I will not repeat the demonstration. After knitting a few rounds, when there are many loops on each straight needle, you can switch to a circular needle. Please refer to the chart for the specific size. Let's first get to know the circular needle. It connects the two straight needles together. Hold one end of the circular needle in your right hand. Refer to the chart. Work the corresponding stitches. The stitches on my small sample are random. Continue knitting this way around the circle. Replace all the straight needles one by one. By the end of the round, the straight needles have been replaced. When begin the next round, place a stitch marker on the right needle first to mark the starting position. If you don't have a stitch marker, you can use a paperclip or a safety pin instead. When you finish knitting the loops right of the marker, it indicates the end of the round. When begin the next round, continue moving the stitch marker to the right needle. Repeat this process and continue referring to the chart. Finish the remaining part of the yoke. During the process, you may run out of the yarn. We need to join the new yarn, leaving about 10 centimeters of length. Tie a knot on the old yarn tail. Pull it tight, and then move the knot down to the base of the old yarn tail. Note: the knot for joining yarn should be on the wrong side of the fabric piece. Don't let it show on the right side. For any subsequent need to join yarn, do it the same way. Continue working the corresponding stitches with the new yarn. The yarn tails from joining can be woven in along the texture of the wrong side. If you make a mistake during the process, we need to tink. The method for tinking stitches is, with the left needle, from top to bottom, insert into the V-shaped loop on the right side. Then release the loop on the right needle. This tink one stitch. If you've made a mistake, you can tink the stitches in this way until you reach the correct position. Once the yoke is completed, you need to adjust the position of the first stitch. Remove the stitch marker. Then knitting the corresponding number of stitches. This adjusts the position of the first stitch. Up to this point, the method for yoke has been covered. Next, let's learn about the body knitting method. The body is divided into 3 sections. Before starting, we need mark the front and back pieces and the sleeves. Then knitting the first section, knitting back and forth on the back piece to create the difference between the front and back. After that, knitting in rounds for the remaining 2 sections. First, let's learn the method for the first section. Let's look at the finished product. Knitting back and forth along yoke. Continue to working the crossing pattern according to the chart. In the other positions, the texture appears as knit stitches from the right side, which is the stockinette stitch pattern. There's something important to note. This fabric piece is knitted back and forth. However, the knitting chart reflects what you see from the right side. So when you actually knitting on the wrong side, check the key for specific stitch technique. Now, let me demonstrate the specific knitting method. I'll continue using this small sample to demonstrate. First, mark the front and back pieces, as well as the left and right sleeves. Separate the right sleeve first. Cut a longer yarn tail. Thread it onto the yarn needle. Put the loops of the right sleeve onto the waist yarn. Place the wrong side of the fabric facing you. The sewing needle goes from right to left. Insert it into the loops on the left needle. Draw the loops through. The exact stitch count is indicated on the pattern. The stitch count for the small sample is random. Once done, remove the sewing needle. Make a loose knot with the 2 yarn tails. Leave the right sleeve for now. Count down a certain number of stitches. This is the front piece. Place a marker at the corresponding position. Then count out the stitch number corresponding to the left sleeve. Place a marker. The remaining part is the back piece. The stitch counts for the front and back pieces are identical. Note not to divide the sections incorrectly. Now we will work the first row of the back piece. Have the right side of the fabric towards you. Continue working. Knit the loops right of the marker. After completing this, place the loops of the left sleeve on a holder. As you can see, this is what it looks like after completing the first row. Now work the second row. The yarn tail is now on the right needle. This row is worked from the wrong side. Have the wrong side facing you? Read the chart from left to right. All symbols represent. Purl all the stitches on the wrong side. Purl all stitches. Place the right needle underneath the yarn. Working purl stitches. Finish this row. The second row is now complete. Place a marker underneath the needle. Mark this as the first row. This makes it convenient for counting rows later. Continue with the third row. Work this row on the right side. Turn the fabric piece over. View the chart from right to left. Work all knit stitches. Complete this row. As you can see, this is what we have after the third row completed. Next, work the fourth row. This row is working on the wrong side. Work the corresponding stitch according to the pattern chart. Turn the work piece. Purl all the stitches of this row. The fourth row is done. Following the chart. Work back and forth with corresponding stitches. Row 9 requires a crossing stitch pattern. Complete the first 9 rows by yourself. I won't demonstrate that. Continue with row 10. I'll continue demonstrating using this swatch. Purl all the stitches. Complete them. Row 10 is done. Knit through the remaining rows. End with the wrong side. When counting rows, start from the marker, which is this braid. Remember to count in the loops on the circular needle. I won't demonstrate that here. This is the method for the first section. Next, we knit the second section of the body. Let's take a look at the finished product. Using the whip stitch increase. To connect the front and back pieces, we will work in rounds. Watch as I demonstrate the specific technique. Here, I'll continue using this small sample to demonstrate. First, work the first round. You can see the yarn tail is now on the right side of the back piece. We start by working on the back piece position. Knit the corresponding loops on the back piece. After that, start increasing. Refer to the chart. Work the corresponding number of whip stitch increases continuously. The stitch count on my sample is random. Pay attention not to pull the yarn tail too tight. 1, 2, 3. No matter how many stitches you increase here, when you've increased half of the stitches, place a marker on the loops. Continue increasing. The increases for my simple are done. Then work on the front piece. Knit all the stitches. After knitting the front piece, continue working the whip stitch increase. When you've increased half of the stitches, place a marker. That completes the first round. Place a stitch marker on the right needle to distinguish the starting position. Then work the second round. Knit all the stitches in sequence. until you reach the whip stitch increase position. Now we're at the very position. Pay attention. Don't let the distance between the two needles be too wide, to avoid a long transition yarn and uneven fabric. During the knitting process, if whip stitch accidentally fall off the left needle, you can take the yarn between the two needles and wrap it clockwise around, once from the middle. Place this loop back onto the left needle. This restores the loop. Then continue knitting them down. That completes the second round. Place a mark on the braid below the needle for the first round, which makes counting rounds convenient later on. Refer to the pattern chart to work the corresponding patterns and increases. The remaining part is all worked in stockinette stitch. To keep the pattern symmetrical and neat, do not adjust the increase positions arbitrarily. The method for the rest part is quite simple. You can finish knitting them by yourself. I will not demonstrate it again. Next, we'll work on the third section of the body. Let's take a look at the finished product. Knit all the stitches. While knitting, we need to switch colors. To create the Jacquard pattern, the chart uses different colored squares to distinguish the corresponding colors. Now, let me demonstrate the specific knitting technique. First, work the first round. This makes the explanation more convenient. We'll call the original yarn color 1. Take out the new yarn. Consider this new yarn as color 2. Join color 2 at the base of color 1. Then, keep color 1 behind the fabric piece. Knit with color 2. Finish this round. The first round is complete. For the second round, knit entirely with color 1. Later, there will be intervals where you need to use color 2 again. Place color 2 behind the fabric piece. Pick up the reserved color 1 below and knit directly. Note that when carrying the yarn across, don't pull too tight to avoid the fabric piece shrinking. The second round is done. For the third round, we need to join color 3 and alternate colors for the Jacquard pattern. Join color 3 at the base of color 1. You can see that, in the chart, color 3 has more stitches to knit. Hang it on your right hand. Hang color 1 on your left hand. Wrap the yarn around your left little finger once. Thread it between the middle finger and index finger. Place this yarn above the index finger. Hold the needle with the remaining fingers on your left hand. Before knitting, carry along color 2 once. Place color 2 above the yarn tail on your right hand, from left to right. Refer to the charts. First, knit 3 stitches using color 3. While knitting, color 1 is below color 3. Then knit 1 stitch using color 1. Insert the right needle into the loop. With your left hand, place color 1 onto the right needle. Yarn over and draw through the loop with the right needle. At the same time, release the loop on the left needle. 1 knit stitch is completed. Stretch the fabric piece. Next, knit 5 stitches using color 3. Color 1 is underneath color 3. Knit 1 stitch using color 1. Stretch the fabric piece. Continue knitting in the pattern of 5 stitches in color 3 and 1 stitch in color 1. Stretch the fabric piece every few stitches. The third round is done. Next, work the fourth round. There's no need to carry color 2 for this round. Refer to the chart. Knit the corresponding number of stitches using the corresponding yarn. Pay attention when you're knitting. Keep color 3 on your right hand always on top, and the color 1 on your left hand always underneath. Stretch the fabric piece every few stitches. Finish this round. The fourth round is completed. Next, work the fifth round. Carry color 2 once before you start knitting. Place color 2 from left to right above the yarn in your right hand. Then refer to the chart. Knit the corresponding number of stitches with corresponding color. I won't demonstrate further. Let's look at the pattern for the first 13 rounds. Carry color 1 with your left hand, and color 3 with your right hand. Switch colors to create the Jacquard pattern. Keep color 1 underneath color 3 while knitting. Stretch the fabric piece every few stitches. At the same time, every other round, carry color 2 once at the first stitch. You don't need to carry the yarn every round. Just carry color 2 on the corresponding rounds. After completing the 7th round, the next use of color 3 is quite a distance away. Leave a yarn tail of about 10 centimeters and cut the yarn. Don't deal with the yarn tail yet. Refer to the chart later. Hold color 1 with your right hand and hold color 2 with your left hand. Knit the corresponding stitch with the corresponding color. While knitting, color 2 is always underneath color 1. The method is quite simple. You can knit the first 13 rounds by yourself. I won't demonstrate that. I'll use this small sample to demonstrate the knitting method for round 14. The small sample has fewer rounds. The Jacquard pattern is random. I'm just demonstrating the method. First, knit 1 stitch in color 2 and 1 stitch in color 1. Repeat this twice. Then knit 3 stitches in color 2. Next, knit 1 stitch in color 1 and 1 stitch in color 2. Then knit 7 stitches using color 1. There are more stitches here. You need to carry along color 2 as you work. Knit 3 stitches first. On the 4th stitch, carry the color 2 once. Insert the needle. Bring color 2 over the working yarn, which is color 1. Knit 1 stitch in color 1. This carries color 2 once. Then knit the remaining 3 stitches in color 1. While knitting, color 1 remains above color 2. Next, knit 1 stitch in color 2 and 1 stitch in color 1. Stretch the fabric piece. Then knit 3 stitches in color 2. Followed by 1 stitch in color 1 and 1 stitch in color 2 alternately. Repeat this 3 times. Check the stitch count when done. Here we alternate 3 stitches in color 2. Then knit 1 stitch in color 1 and 3 stitches in color 2. Continue with 1 stitch in color 1 and 1 stitch in color 2. Then knit 7 stitches in color 1. The stitch count is larger. You need to carry color 2. Knit 3 stitches first. Carry the yarn for the 4th stitch. Then knit the remaining 3 stitches. Continue in this way. Follow the chart to complete this round. Round 14 is completed. Continue knitting the Jacquard pattern afterward. The method is the same as before. When the color change area has a stitch count equal to or greater than 6, carry the yarn every 3 stitches. If the color change area has fewer than 6 stitches, there's no need to carry the yarn, just knit corresponding stitches in sequence. On round 45, we will join color 3. Also every other round. Bring color 2 to the corresponding round at the first stitch. The method is simple, you can finish them on your own. I won't demonstrate it. After completing the Jacquard section, yarn 1 and yarn 3 are no longer needed. You can leave a 10 cm tail and cut the yarn. Keep yarn 2. Next, weave in the ends. Thread the yarn tails onto the sewing needle. Weave them in following the texture on the wrong side of the fabric. Mindful when weaving in. Don't pick up the right side of the fabric piece with the needle. After weaving a few stitches, divide the yarn tail into 2 strands. Take one strand and exit from an adjacent position. Make a simple knot with the 2 strands. Weave in again. Trim any excess yarn tails. And the ends are now woven in. The yarn tail for joining has already been tied off, so just weave in them as former steps. The method is pretty simple. I will not repeat the demonstration. Up to this point, the body part has been fully explained. After completing the body, move on to working the hem. The hem using only one color. The new stitches used are 3 Street Cont RT and 3 Street RT TBL. Once the hem is complete, we will bind off in a stretchy way. Now, please watch me demonstrate the specific knitting method. The first 4 rounds are knitted in the same way as the collar. My sample has fewer rounds. Starting from round 5, we will begin the pattern. Work 1K, 1 TBL, and 1 purl stitch first. Then work 1 3 Street Cont RT. Insert the right needle from right to left. Slip the first loop. Then pick up the third loop from the front of the piece. Pinch the base of the loop with your right hand. And remove the left needle. Thread behind the middle loop. Then draw the 2 loops on the right needle. Back onto the left needle one by one. Then, knit the first 2 stitches on the left needle together. After completing, yarn over. This adds an extra loop to the right needle. This is the stitch for yarn over. Knit 1 stitch. 1 3-streak contour T is completed. Continue, purl 1 stitch. Work 1 K 1 TBL and purl 1. Then knit another 3-streak contour T. The right needle picks up the first loop. Then pick up the third loop. Remove the left needle. Thread it through the middle loop. And then return the 2 loops on the right needle back to the left needle. Then knit the first 2 stitches together. After completing, yarn over. Knit 1 more stitch. Another 3-streak contour T is done. Refer to the pattern chart for corresponding stitches. Work this round to completion. Purl the last stitch. The 5th round is completed. Proceed to work the 6th round. Start with K2 TBL and 1 purl stitch. Knit 3 stitches in the position of 3-streak contour T. Mind not to make any mistakes. After that, continue with purling 1. K1 TBL. Purl 1. Knit 3 stitches. Continue working them down to completion. The 6th round is done. The 7th and 8th rounds are knitted in the same way as the 6th round. You can work these 2 rounds on your own. I won't demonstrate again. Next, I'll use this swatch to demonstrate the 9th round. Start with K1 TBL. Follow with purling 1. Then work 1 3-streak or TBL. The right needle picks up the 3rd loop on front of the piece. Hold the base of the loop with your right hand. Remove the left needle. Pull over the next 2 loops on the right side from behind. Then transfer the loop on the right needle back to the left needle. Then work 1 K1 TBL. One purl stitch, and 1 K1 TBL. The 3-street RTTBL is now complete. This 3-street RTTBL aligns with 3-street cont RT below. Continue with purling 1. K1 TBL, and purling 1. Then work another 3-street RTTBL. First, insert the right needle into the 3rd loop. Remove the left needle. Pull over the next 2 loops on the right side. Then transfer the loop on the right needle back to the left needle. Work 1K1 TBL. One purl stitch, and 1K1 TBL. Another 3-street RTTBL is done. Continue working in this way, and complete this round. The 9th round is completed. For the hem, you'll be working a simple ribbon with alternating 3-street RTTBL and purl stitches. The method is quite simple. You can work through these rounds on your own. I won't demonstrate it here. After completing the last round of the hem, you need to bind off. I'll continue using this small sample to demonstrate the method for binding off. The sample has fewer rounds. I'm just demonstrating the method. Purl the first stitch on the left needle. You can remove the stitch marker. Knit the second stitch. Place the working yarn on the back. Mind that the working yarn goes behind the right needle. And then around to underneath the fabric piece. Loosen the loop on the right needle. Position the right needle above the working yarn. Then insert the right needle into the loosened loop. When inserting, pay attention not to twist the texture of the loop. Now the working yarn is underneath the fabric piece. Knit 1 stitch. After completing the stitch, bring the loop on the right needle over the loop on the left. That completes bind off once. Continue binding off. Purl 1. The working yarn is now underneath the fabric piece. We need to bring the working yarn over and knit. Release the loop on the right needle. Place the right needle underneath the working yarn. Then insert into the released loop. Let me emphasize again. Make sure not to twist the texture of the loop. Now the working yarn is above the fabric piece. Purl 1. After completing the stitch, bring the loop on the right over the loop on the left. The second loop is now bind off. Continue with the third stitch. Knit 1. Release the loop on the right needle. Place the right needle above the working yarn. Then insert into the released loop. Knit the stitch. After completing the stitch, bring the loop on the right over the loop on the left. The third stitch is now bind off. This method of binding off is called ribbon bind off. Continue in this manner. Purl at the knit stitch location. The yarn tail is now behind the fabric piece. You need to bring the yarn to the top. Release the loop on the right needle. Place the right needle underneath the yarn. Then insert into the released loop. Purl the stitch. After completing the stitch, bring the loop on the right over to the left loop. Knit at the purl stitch position. The yarn tail is now above the fabric piece. Release the loop on the right needle. Place the right needle above the yarn. Then insert into the loop. Knit the stitch. In this way, continue to bind off the rest. When you have one loop remaining, leave a yarn tail about 10 centimeters long. Cut it off. Enlarge the loop. Thread the yarn tail through the loop. Pull tight. Thread the yarn tail into the sewing needle. Insert it from an approximate position on the left side. Tighten the yarn tail. Pass through a few times to secure. Then weave in the yarn tail following the texture on the wrong side. The method for weaving in yarn tails is the same. I will not repeat the demonstration. Now take a look. This is what the hem looks like after completion. Next, we'll work the sleeves. Let's take a look at the finished product. Pick up stitches around the armhole and knit in rounds. The method for knitting both left and right sleeves is identical. The sleeve is divided into the sleeve body and the cuff. The sleeve body is made up of two sections. The first part is knit with crossing stitch patterns. The second part is knit with Jacquard patterns. The cuff is identical to the hem. Please watch me demonstrate the specific knitting technique. Here, I'll continue using this small sample for the demonstration. First, work the left sleeve. Place the reserve stitch back onto the needle. Insert the needle from right to left into the loops. The small sample has fewer stitches. In practice, there are more stitches reserved. Place them approximately on 2 straight needles. Put the loops in the middle. Then start picking up from the increase placement. I'll continue demonstrating with the cotton yarn. The color scheme is random. Refer to the chart for specifics. Make a loose knot with the yarn tail. Leave the yarn tail longer. Hang the yarn with your right hand. You can see that the whip stitch increase points are in rows of braids. We pick the thread above each row of braids. Take out the third straight needle. Insert the hook into the loop marked by the stitch marker, which is this loop above this row of braids. Pick out the knotted loop. Adjust the loop size. This is the first stitch of the sleeve body. Next, the straight needle inserts into the loop above the left column of braids. Yarn over and pick up. This is the second stitch. Pick up another stitch. The sample swatch added 6 stitches in total. Here we've already picked up half of the stitches. In practice, pick up the corresponding number of stitches as needed. Now we're at the position of the back piece. You can see there will be a row of braids on the side. Each row corresponds to one braid. We insert into the braid and pick up. The first stitch is picked up. Pick up another stitch from the braid on the left side. Continue picking up stitches following the pattern of 1 stitch per row. Then knit in the position where you had the reserved loops. Knit using the 4th straight needle. Take out the 4th straight needle. Knit them down to finish. After knitting the reserved loops, continue picking up the remaining half of the whip stitch increase points. Up to this point, the pickup for the sleeve is now complete. Next, you can adjust the position of the loops. Distribute them roughly evenly across the 3 needles. Note that the first stitch and the last stitch loops do not move. Place a marker below the 3rd needle. When you finish the stitches above the marker on this needle, this indicates the end of a full round. The first round is now complete. For the first part of the sleeve body, refer to the chart. Knit the corresponding crossing stitch pattern. During the knitting process, if the 3 loops for the pattern are not on the same needle, slip them up onto one needle before knitting. If you need to increase the length of the sleeve, you can add rounds to the first part of the sleeve body. Just work according to the pattern chart, and finish the first section. The second section of the sleeve body is knitted with the same Jacquard pattern as the body. The sleeve cuff is identical to the hem. Mindful when knitting, you need to adjust the needle sizes. Refer to the chart for specific needle sizes. Finally, bind off using the ribbon bind off method. I won't demonstrate that here. As you can see, this is what the left sleeve looks like after completion. When weaving in the yarn tails at the end, you can use the reserve tail to sew the underarm position. Make sure there aren't any noticeable holes. Then weave in the ends. Up to this point, the explanation for knitting the left sleeve is now complete. The method for knitting the right sleeve is identical to the left sleeve. First, transfer the reserved loops back onto the straight needle. I've already done this ahead of time. After completing, take out the new yarn and the third straight needle. Start at the increase placement, picking up from the marked loop with the stitch marker. Pick up half the number of single knitting increases. Then knit the stitches on the needle. Then pick up stitches along the back piece. The number of stitches picked up is the same as before. Finally, pick up the remaining half of the stitches at the increase placement. After picking up all the stitches, adjust the loops. Distribute them evenly to 3 needles. Note when adjusting, the first stitch and the last stitch stay in position. Place a marker underneath the third straight needle. The knitting method afterward is the same as the left sleeve. The method is quite simple. You can finish them by following the chart. I will not repeat the demonstration. This is the method for knitting the right sleeve. Up to this point, the method for knitting this sweater has been fully explained. If you have any questions during the process, Don't hesitate to reach us via our website, Susan's Family, supporting your handwork experience, sharing the joy of life. Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next episode.